The transport pod descended through Earth's atmosphere with a mechanical whine that made Lyra's ears flatten against her skull. Her clawed fingers gripped the safety harness so tightly that the synthetic material began to tear. Through the viewport, she watched the blue-green planet grow larger, her golden eyes wide with a mixture of terror and reluctant fascination. Lyra was Caneth, a proud member of the wolf-like species that had conquered 17 star systems through sheer ferocity and military might. Her people were warriors, hunters, apex predators who made other species tremble. Yet here she was, trembling herself, sold into a mail-order bride contract to pay off her family's crushing debts to the Galactic Trade Consortium. The irony wasn't lost on her. Destination: New Seattle, North American sector. The pod's AI announced in that infuriatingly cheerful tone all AI systems seemed programmed with. Preparing for landing sequence. Your contractor has been notified. Contractor. What a sterile word for the human who now owned her contract for the next 5 standard years. Lyra had heard the stories about humans, the strange bipedal species that had only joined the galactic community 40 years ago. They were weak, her instructors had said. Soft. They had no natural weapons, no claws, no fangs worth mentioning. They compensated with technology, yes, but individually they were hardly threatening. So why did her instincts scream danger every time she thought about meeting one? The pod touched down in a private landing zone with barely a bump. Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs as the door hissed open, revealing a modest suburban home with a well-maintained garden. Earth's sun felt different on her fur, warmer, somehow more alive than the harsh light of her homeworld's binary stars. She stepped out on shaking legs, her tail tucked between her legs despite her best efforts to appear dignified. At nearly 7 feet tall, she towered over most species, her silver-gray fur and battle scars marking her as a veteran of the Caneth Defense Forces. But right now, in this alien place, she felt small. Hello there. Lyra spun toward the voice, dropping into a defensive crouch purely on instinct. Her lips pulled back from her fangs, and then she stopped, confused. The human standing in the doorway was not what she expected. He was of average height for his species, perhaps 5'9", with a slender build that screamed non-combatant. His skin was pale, his hair a messy brown that fell across thick-framed glasses. He wore what her cultural briefing had called casual clothing, a shirt with strange symbols on it. She could make out the words, "May the Force be with you," and comfortable-looking pants. He was smiling. Not the predatory smile of a victor claiming his prize, but something softer, nervous even. "You must be Lyra," he said, adjusting his glasses with one hand while the other clutched what appeared to be a tablet device. "I'm Marcus Chen. Sorry, I should have been out here waiting, but I was just finishing setting up your room and lost track of time. Come on in. You must be exhausted from the journey." He turned and walked back into the house without waiting, as if he had no fear whatsoever of turning his back on a trained Caneth warrior. Lyra stood frozen for a moment, her tactical training warring with her confusion. Every instinct told her this was wrong. Prey didn't act like this. Owners didn't act like this. What kind of game was the human playing? Cautiously, she followed him inside. The interior of the home was cozy. That was the only word for it. The walls were lined with shelves containing hundreds of physical books and strange collectible figurines. A large screen dominated one wall, currently displaying a paused image of what looked like a space battle. Comfortable furniture filled the space, and the air smelled of something sweet and warm. "I made cookies," Marcus said, emerging from what she presumed was the kitchen with a plate of golden brown discs. "Chocolate chip." I wasn't sure if Caneth could eat chocolate. The internet had conflicting information, but I figured we could test it with a small piece first. I also made regular sugar cookies just in case, and I have about 17 different meal options prepared, based on what I could find about Caneth dietary needs. He paused, pushing his glasses up again. I might have over-prepared a bit." Lyra just stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Marcus set the plate down and rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture she would come to recognize as his nervous habit. "Right, sorry. I'm info-dumping. My friends always tell me I do that. You probably want to see your room and get settled. Come on, it's upstairs." He led her up a staircase to a spacious bedroom that had been clearly prepared with care. The bed was enormous, large enough even for her frame, with soft-looking blankets in shades of silver and blue. A desk sat by the window, already equipped with a computer terminal configured for Galactic Standard Interface. The walls were bare, but he'd left several containers of art supplies in one corner. I wasn't sure what you'd like for decoration, Marcus explained, so I figured you could personalize it however you want. The bathroom is through that door, and I made sure to get the high-pressure shower head because I read that Kenneth prefers stronger water flow. If anything isn't right, just let me know and we can fix it. Lyra finally found her voice. Why? Marcus blinked at her. Why what? Why are you... She gestured vaguely at the room, at him, at everything. Doing all this? I'm your contracted bride. Your property for the next 5 years. You don't have to... Whoa, stop right there, Marcus interrupted, holding up his hands. His expression had shifted, become more serious. You are absolutely not my property. That's not how this works. Yes, you have a contract, but so do I. I'm contracted to provide you with safe housing, food, and a cultural exchange experience. You're contracted to provide companionship and help me understand Kenneth culture better. He pushed his glasses up again. And honestly, the whole mail-order bride thing is kind of an archaic term. I prefer to think of it as an arranged partnership with the possibility of mutual affection if both parties are interested. But you paid? I paid the Galactic Trade Consortium's placement fee and agreed to cover your living expenses. I didn't buy you. Big difference. Marcus smiled again, and Lyra was struck by how genuine it seemed. Look, I know this situation is weird and probably scary for you. If I'm being honest, I'm terrified. I've never even had a girlfriend, let alone an arranged alien bride. I'm a software engineer who spends most of his time coding and watching sci-fi shows. My social skills are charitably questionable. Despite herself, Lyra felt her ears perk up slightly. Then why did you sign up for this program? Marcus's expression turned thoughtful. Because I wanted to prove something to myself, I guess. That I could step outside my comfort zone. And because he hesitated, then continued. Because when I read your file, just the basic information they provide, I saw that you were a veteran dealing with PTSD, and you took this contract to help your family. That takes courage. Real courage. I respected that. Lyra felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Her entire life, strength had meant physical prowess, victory in combat, dominance. But this human, this soft, weak-looking human, was showing her a different kind of strength. I don't understand humans, she admitted quietly. Marcus laughed, a warm sound that filled the space between them. That's okay. I barely understand humans, and I am one. He moved toward the door, then paused. Hey, Lyra! I know you're probably still scared, but I promise you I don't bite. His grin turned slightly mischievous, unless you ask me to. And with that, he left her alone with her thoughts, the door closing softly behind him. Lyra stood in the middle of her new room, her mind reeling. She had prepared herself for a cruel master, a lustful owner, perhaps even an indifferent keeper who would ignore her except when her contract required interaction. She had not prepared herself for Marcus Chen. As she sank onto the surprisingly comfortable bed, Lyra realized that this arrangement might be far more complicated and potentially far more dangerous to her carefully guarded heart than any battle she'd ever fought. Outside her door, she heard Marcus moving around, humming something tunelessly. Despite everything, despite her fear and confusion and wounded pride, Lyra found herself smiling. This was going to be an interesting 5 years.